You know that one boss who never raises their voice, but somehow everyone is terrified of disappointing them? To me, that's Gus Fring. In Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, Gustavo Fring runs one of the most dangerous drug empires on TV while also running a perfectly legitimate fast food chain with obsessively high standards. And so in this video, I'm breaking down Gus Fring's leadership style, what his dominant leadership archetype is, his strengths, his blind spots, risks, and how you can turn those same traits into really powerful and healthy leadership skills in your own work life without becoming a criminal mastermind, obviously. So join me as we take a trip through Albuquerque and discuss Gus Fring. If you've seen Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul, you already know Gus as kind of like the impeccably calm owner of Los Pollos Hermanos. He's the polite local businessman with the flawless reputation, who's also one of the most powerful and feared meth distributors in the Southwest. On the surface, he's very friendly, soft-spoken, hyper-professional. He's a community man, a donor, a respectable figure. But underneath that, he's calculating, strategic, and ruthless. He builds systems that are almost impossible to break. And so what makes Gus so fascinating from a leadership perspective is that he doesn't lead like a stereotypical TV mob boss. He's not volatile, he's not loud, he doesn't rely on chaos. He leads like a CEO because he is one. And more importantly, like a very particular archetype of a leader that we're gonna name and unpack. If I had to give this man a leadership archetype, I would call him the strategic servant leader with a shadow of control, because he blends three major styles. We've got the strategic and systems leader. So he thinks in long-term plans, supply chains, risk, contingency. His empire is built on process, not personality. And he doesn't just react, he's usually 3 moves ahead. He's also a servant leader. He literally serves, right? Like he clears tables, he wipes counters, he works the register, he empties the trash, he talks to customers, he supports his staff, he protects his team as civilians, even from people like Hector Salamanca. He's also very controlled with an authoritarian edge. When people fall short of his standards or threaten his empire, he can be absolutely uncompromising. The control is mostly hidden behind politeness, but it's there and it's intense. So if you've ever felt like you're the one quietly making sure everything runs, or you're focused on quality and standards, you take care of your team, but you can also be rigid or controlling, you might recognize pieces of yourself in Gus, hopefully in healthier ways. One of Gus's most obvious strengths is his unrelenting focus on quality in both of his worlds. In the drug business, his product is known for its purity and consistency, whereas in the chicken business, Los Pollos Hermanos runs like a high standard, customer first operation. There's a moment that really shows this. So when he's under threat from Lalo trying to kill him, Mike hires security for Gus, and he strategically places them in the restaurant and specific areas of his world. And so one of those guys is placed inside of Los Pollos Hermanos. Gus doesn't just want a body there though. He expects that person to actually function as a short order cook. And so when that guy can't meet the Los Pollos Hermanos standards, not good enough, not fine for now, but Gus level standards, he's let go.
The man you placed in my kitchen,
Roy?
you told me that he had experience as a short order cook.
2 years at McDonald's in college. He's not there just to make French fries. I need guys in close.
He's not up to Pollo standards.
I'll find a replacement.
And that detail seems really small, but from a leadership angle, it tells us a lot, right? It says that Gus does not compromise on role expectations. So even in a crisis, he doesn't say, it's fine, just stand around and look tough. His brand, his product, his customer experience, those are all non-negotiable. He holds the same standard in his meth operation. He chooses Walt specifically for his chemistry excellence. He builds labs and processes that maximize quality and consistency. And so our leadership takeaway here is that great leaders set clear, specific standards and don't quietly move the bar every time things get hard. Quality is not an accident, it is a decision. And Gus makes that decision again and again. And used well, this is an incredible strength because it builds trust, it builds reputation, and it builds loyalty from people who care about excellence. Now, let's actually talk about something that might surprise people. Gus is a servant leader, and servant leadership is about putting the needs of your people first so that they can do their best work. And Gus, in his restaurant world, models this extremely well. He works alongside his team, right? We see him clearing and wiping down tables. We see him working the register. We see him emptying the trash. We see him greeting and talking to customers, right? He's not above any of the tasks he asks others to do. And that creates a culture where no job is really beneath anyone, not even the boss. He sees his employees as humans and not disposable labor. And so another powerful example is the scene where Hector Salamanca comes into the restaurant to threaten him. And so what does Gus do? He closes early, even though that costs him money. He sends his team home with pay, so they're not financially punished for a situation that has absolutely nothing to do with them.
I want you all to go home now. You will be compensated for your full shifts. Normal schedule tomorrow.
And then the next day, he holds a meeting to apologize to them, to explain what happened in a way that reassures them, and he offers to pay them overtime because he knows that they took that stress home with them. He's acknowledging not just their labor, but their emotional reality. He knows the impact doesn't end when they clock out. He also protects them as civilians, right? When talking to Hector, Gus reminds him that his employees are civilians and that they are not to be involved.
Mine is a cartel business, but it is mine, and it is legitimate. My employees are civilians. Your actions here today have endangered them, my interests, and those of the cartel.
And that is leadership. He's drawing a boundary. This world of violence and power is between us. My staff is not a part of that. They're under my protection. And so your leadership takeaway from this is that servant leadership doesn't just mean being nice. It means getting in the trenches when you're needed. It means respecting your people's time and emotional energy and actively protecting them from unnecessary harm. In a normal workplace, that might look like shielding your team from chaotic leadership that's above you, or giving context and explanation when things get tense. And of course, paying people fairly when they're asked to absorb extra stress or work. Okay, now here's where we shift from admiration to caution, because Gus is an exaggeration of what can go wrong when certain strengths get pushed too far. So let's list a few areas of opportunity, right? The things that in a real workplace you'd want to watch out for if you're a Gus type of leader. You want to watch over control and perfectionism. Gus's standards are really high, and that's great until it crosses into rigidity.
But is it, like, you think it's okay? It's clean?
It is acceptable.
There's very little room for vulnerability, error, or experimentation. And the people around him may feel like they have to be perfect or invisible.
Have a good night, Miss Fring.
He rarely shares power, he orchestrates everything, and in real life, that kind of leader can unintentionally create fear-based cultures. It can stifle creativity and, of course, cause burnout because no one feels like they're good enough. We've also got emotional distance. He stays calm all the time. He rarely shows anger or panic or confusion. And while emotional regulation is a strength, his version becomes emotional distance. You see almost nothing of his inner world, and that makes him really hard to read and hard to trust on a deeper human level. His relationships are functional, but they are rarely authentic. And so in a healthy workplace, teams need psychological safety, which includes vulnerability, not just control. And we've also got instrumental caring. Yes, he protects his employees. Yes, he compensates them for stress. But part of that care is also very calculated. They're an asset to be protected, not necessarily equals to be emotionally known. And so in a real organization, this can show up as "we care about you" messaging without actually inviting your voice, your feedback, or your differences, right? It's care with a limit, as long as you keep the system running smoothly. So how do we translate Gus's darker edges into healthy leadership growth? So let's take the same 3 areas and reframe them as development paths. So from over control to empowering structure. If you relate to Gus's love of control and standards, ask yourself, where can I teach the standard instead of just enforcing it? Where can I document the process so others can own pieces of it? And where can I allow good enough to start and improve over time instead of waiting for perfect? Turn your love of structure into empowerment, not micromanagement. And so some examples here would be like, instead of redoing someone's work in secret, do a walkthrough together and coach them through it. And instead of "only I can do this right," ask, what would make it possible for someone else to do this 80 to 90% as well as I can? Your standard stays high, but your team grows instead of shrinking around you. And then we've got from emotional distance to calm human presence. You don't have to become an oversharer or suddenly cry in every meeting, but you can name your emotions in a grounded way. I'm frustrated with how this launch went, and here's why. And then share your process. This decision was hard, and here's what I weighed. And then invite others to share. How did yesterday's situation land for you? What did you take home with you mentally? You keep the calm center that Gus is known for, but you add human transparency, which builds trust. And then we've got from instrumental caring to genuine partnership. So if you, like Gus, tend to think in terms of systems and outcomes, stretch into relational leadership. Ask your team about their goals, not just their tasks. You want to build feedback loops where people can push back or suggest changes without fear. And when you protect people, also ask, what did that feel like for you? What do you need from me going forward? You're still a strategic leader, but your people become partners, not just protected chess pieces. So what do we learn from Gus Fring as a leader? High standards can build incredible trust and reputation. Servant leadership is about being willing to do the work, protect your people, and respect their humanity. That's super powerful. But without vulnerability, flexibility, and shared power, those same strengths can become isolating, rigid, and ultimately destructive. Now, I want you to reflect. Where in your own leadership are you a little bit Gus? Where do you excel at quality and systems? Where might you be over-controlling, emotionally distant, or a little too my way or the highway? If you're curious about your own leadership archetype, especially through the lens of TV and pop culture characters, I've created something to help you go deeper. And if you've gotten value out of this breakdown of Gus Fring's leadership style and you want to support more content like this, first, you can buy me a coffee. I have a Buy Me a Coffee page where you can make a small contribution to support this channel. It really helps me research these characters, create thoughtful breakdowns, and keep this content free and accessible. And your support there genuinely makes a difference and lets me keep diving into these very rich character studies through a leadership lens. And second, if you're ready to explore your own inner boss, you want to check out my PDF guide, What the Office Teaches You About How to Be the Boss. The investment in you is $11. And in this guide, you'll get 5 leadership archetypes based on characters from The Office, who they are, their strengths, their opportunities for growth, and how these traits show up in the real workplace. You'll get practical suggestions for how to leverage your natural strengths, address your blind spots, and translate TV character traits into real-world leadership skills. And as well, you'll get journal prompts and reflection questions to help you discover which character or leader that you resonate with most, understand why, and then intentionally design how you want to show up as a leader, whether that's in your career, your business, or your creative projects. And below, you'll find the links to buy me a coffee as well as grab that guide. Thanks so much for hanging out with me and unpacking Gus Fring, not just as a villain, but as a case study in leadership done absolutely brilliantly. and dangerously. If you want more videos like this, where we break down leadership styles through TV shows, movies, and pop culture, make sure you like, subscribe, and drop a comment telling me which character I should analyze next. And until next time, remember, you don't have to build an empire to be a leader. You just have to be intentional about how you lead the people right in front of you.